In 1847, Nebraska Territory, when tensions between settlers and native tribes ran deadly high, one moment of compassion between strangers changed everything. A traveling merchant encounters a starving girl from a Lakota tribe, and his simple act of kindness triggers an extraordinary chain of events that proves humanity transcends all cultural boundaries. Hit that like button, share your thoughts on what draws you to stories of unexpected generosity, and subscribe for more incredible tales that prove compassion has no borders. Now, let's begin with Chapter 1. The Nebraska Prairie stretched endlessly under the fading October sky of 1847, a sea of golden grass whispering to the autumn wind. Samuel Hartwell adjusted his position in the saddle, his weathered hands steady on the reins as his pack horse followed behind, laden with trade goods destined for Fort Laramie. After 15 years working frontier trade routes, Samuel had learned to read the subtle signs between profit and disaster, safe passage and deadly encounter. At 42, Samuel had the lean, sun-darkened look of a man who'd spent his adult life outdoors. 2 Navy Colt revolvers rode at his hips, not for show, but because a man traveling alone with valuable cargo needed to be prepared for trouble. The trade goods represented months of planning: bolts of colorful cloth, steel knives, iron pots, glass beads, items worth even more to the native tribes who still controlled vast stretches of this territory. Samuel had built his reputation on fairness, treating all customers with respect and refusing to deal in weapons or alcohol. It was a policy that had sometimes cost him profits, but had kept him alive and trusted by people on both sides of the cultural divide. As he rode toward distant cottonwoods, Samuel noticed something that made him check his weapons: smoke. Not thin wisps from a campfire, but thick, dark columns speaking of destruction. The smoke rose from beyond the trees, maybe 3 miles distant, and even at this range, Samuel could see it was substantial. According to his mental map, that smoke was rising from the vicinity of a small Lakota village he'd traded with several times. The band was led by Chief Running Bear, a man who had shown Samuel respect and fairness. His village was small, maybe 40 people, mostly families, and they had always welcomed Samuel's visits. Against his better judgment, Samuel turned toward the smoke. If Running Bear's people were in trouble, maybe there was something he could do to help. The ride took longer than expected, the deceptive prairie distances making what looked short stretch into miles. By the time he reached a hill overlooking the cottonwood grove, the sun was touching the horizon. What he saw below made his heart sink. The Lakota village was gone, not destroyed in battle, but deliberately burned. The circular patterns where teepees had stood were marked by blackened patches and scattered remains of poles and buffalo hide. Cook fires had been kicked apart. Personal belongings lay scattered: clothing, tools, children's toys, as if people had been forced to leave quickly. The methodical destruction suggested this hadn't been a surprise attack, but forced relocation, probably by army units implementing government policy. That was almost worse than a massacre, because it meant Running Bear's people were now refugees in their own homeland. Samuel decided to camp in the cottonwood grove tonight. In the morning, he would try to determine which direction the displaced villagers had gone. It was probably foolish, but he couldn't simply ride away without trying to help people who had shown him friendship. He guided his horses down toward the trees, looking for a suitable spot, away from the burned village, but close to the stream. As he knelt beside the water filling his containers, he heard it. A sound so faint he almost missed it, a whimper, like a small animal in distress. Samuel froze, listening. Prairie wolves, maybe. But then he heard it again, and this time there was something unmistakably human about it. A child's cry, weak and distant, but definitely human. Samuel approached carefully, calling out softly in the few Lakota words he'd learned. "How, Cola? Friend, no harm." The response was immediate, rustling in brush, followed by a gasp. Samuel moved closer, and in the dim starlight he could make out a small figure huddled among fallen logs. It was a girl, maybe 12 or 13, wearing a torn buckskin dress and clutching a small bundle against her chest. Even in darkness, Samuel could see she was thin to the point of emaciation, her face gaunt with hunger. Her eyes, wide with fear, reflected starlight like those of a cornered animal. She tried to stand and immediately collapsed, too weak to support her own weight. Samuel moved forward quickly, catching her, and realized what she was clutching so protectively. It was a baby, no more than a few months old, wrapped in a small blanket, silent in a way that spoke of either deep sleep or something worse. The girl looked up at Samuel with eyes holding more pain than anyone so young should carry. Then, in broken English mixed with Lakota, she whispered the phrase that would haunt Samuel forever. "Please, mister. Baby hungry. I hungry. Help us." Samuel knelt beside the collapsed girl, his mind racing while his hands moved with practiced efficiency. First priority was determining if the baby was alive. He gently touched the tiny bundle, relieved to feel slight breathing, though worryingly shallow. "What's your name?" Samuel asked softly, then repeated in Lakota words he knew. "Winona," the girl whispered. "Baby. Brother. Chayton. When did you last eat, Winona?" The girl held up trembling fingers. 3 days without food for a nursing girl trying to care for an infant. It was a miracle they were both alive. "I'm going to help you, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Winona studied his face in starlight. After a long moment, she nodded weakly. Samuel helped her to his campsite among the cottonwoods, settling her on his bedroll near the fire's warmth. From his supplies, he pulled dried beef, hardtack, and coffee beans. He heated water, breaking up hardtack and adding beef to create soup that would be easier for Winona to digest. While food heated, Samuel examined baby Chayton more carefully. The infant was breathing but clearly malnourished, showing the pinched features of prolonged hunger. Samuel had seen enough frontier hardship to recognize starvation's signs. "Winona, can you tell me what happened to your village?" The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Soldiers come, say we must go to agency. Chief Running Bear tried to speak peace, but soldiers not listen. They burn teepees, kill dogs, take horses, make everyone walk to reservation far away. How did you and Chayton escape?" "I hide in brush when soldiers come. Baby sleeping, I stay quiet, wait for Mama and Papa, but—" Winona's voice broke. "They not come back. I wait 3 days, so hungry, baby hungry, no milk for baby." Samuel felt cold anger building. He'd known Running Bear personally, had shared meals with the chief's family. The thought of soldiers forcing such people from their homes made him want to demand answers. But first, he had 2 children to save. The soup was ready. "Eat slowly," Samuel warned. "Too much too fast will make you sick." Winona took the cup with shaking hands and sipped tentatively. Samuel watched her face transform as warm food hit her empty stomach. Relief so profound it was painful to witness. "What about Chayton? Is he still nursing?" Winona's face crumpled with shame. "No milk. I try, but nothing come. He's so hungry, but I can't." Samuel had seen this before in frontier families facing starvation. Among his trade goods was sweetened condensed milk, a new invention popular with settlers who couldn't access fresh cow's milk. "This is cow's milk with sugar," he explained. "It's not the same as mother's milk, but it will keep Chayton alive until we find better food." Using a small spoon, Samuel carefully dripped the sweetened milk into the baby's mouth. Chayton was so weak he barely responded at first, but gradually began swallowing the precious nutrition. For the next hour, Samuel alternated between feeding both children and watching the darkness. The situation was dangerous on multiple levels. If hostile tribes found a white man with Lakota children, they might assume he was responsible for the village's destruction. If army patrols discovered him, they might assume he was harboring hostile natives. But watching color return to Winona's face and listening to Chayton's breathing grow stronger, Samuel knew he couldn't have made any other choice. "Winona, do you know where your people were taken?" The girl pointed northwest. "Soldiers say big reservation, many days' walk, other tribes there too, all mixed together." Samuel's heart sank. He knew the reservation, overcrowded with inadequate food, shelter, and medical care. Even if the children survived the journey, life there would be a constant struggle. "I'm going to help you find your family, but it's going to take time. We need to get you both healthy first, and we need to travel carefully." "Why you help us?" Winona asked, studying his face. "You white man. We Lakota. Many white men say we enemies. My father taught me that all children deserve to live, regardless of what they look like or who their parents are. He said any man who would let a child starve when he had food wasn't worthy of being called a man." Winona considered this. "Your father, wise man." "He was, and he would have expected me to help you, just as I hope your father would help white children if he found them starving." "He would," Winona said with quiet certainty. "Papa say all children precious to Great Spirit, no matter what tribe." As the children fell into exhausted sleep, Samuel sat by the dying fire, contemplating what he was taking on. He was a trader, not a rescuer of orphaned children. But some things mattered more than business considerations. Tomorrow he would begin getting these children back to their family. It would be dangerous, expensive, and potentially disastrous for his trading business. But tonight, 2 children were alive who would have been dead by morning. Sometimes, Samuel reflected, that was enough. For 3 days, they traveled northwest across rolling grassland, staying well away from established trails. Samuel was impressed by Winona's resilience and practical skills. She knew which plants were edible, could read weather signs, and had an uncanny ability to spot game and water sources at great distances. More importantly, she was proving excellent company. Her English was better than Samuel had initially realized, and she had quick intelligence and gentle humor. She told him stories of her life in Running Bear's village and asked intelligent questions about white society. "Samuel," she said on the 3rd evening, "why do some white men want to take all land? Lakota believe land belonged to everyone, like air and water, but white men want to own it, put marks on paper." Samuel struggled to explain concepts he'd never questioned. "I suppose it comes from the idea that if you own land, you can improve it, make it more productive. But we improve land too. We hunt in ways that keep animals healthy, gather plants in ways that make them grow better, burn grass to make new growth for buffalo. We just don't put marks on paper." "That's a very good point, Winona." "Nothing permanent," Winona said with matter-of-fact wisdom. "Everything change. Rivers change course, mountains wear down. Only foolish men think they can own something always changing." Conversations like these made Samuel realize that in helping Winona and Chayton, he was also learning things his own culture had never taught him. On the 4th day, their journey was interrupted by an encounter that tested all of Samuel's diplomatic skills. Winona suddenly grabbed his arm and pointed north. "Riders, many riders." Samuel guided his horses toward boulders for concealment. Through his spyglass, he could see a band of mounted warriors, at least 20 men, painted for war. "Can you tell what tribe?" Samuel asked, handing Winona the spyglass. Winona studied the distant riders. "Pawnee, they enemies of Lakota. If they find us—" The Pawnee and Lakota had been traditional enemies for generations. A Pawnee war party finding a white man with Lakota children would likely assume he was either a spy or kidnapper. "We need to hide until they pass," Samuel said, but one of the Pawnee riders had spotted them. Within moments, the entire war party was riding hard toward their position. The Pawnee warriors surrounded them quickly. The war party leader, a man in his 30s with intricate war paint and eagle feathers, rode forward to examine the unlikely group. Samuel raised his hands peacefully and spoke in what little Pawnee he'd learned. "How, Cola, peace, trader, no weapons. You," the war leader said in accented English. "Why you travel with Lakota children? Lakota enemies of Pawnee people." Samuel took a deep breath. "I found them starving near burned village. Their people taken to reservation. Children too weak to travel alone. I helped them find family." "You lie," a younger warrior said angrily. "White man and Lakota make war on Pawnee. You spy." "No spy, trader. I trade with all peoples. Pawnee, Lakota, Cheyenne, white settlements. I fight no one." The war leader studied Samuel's face, then spoke to Winona in Lakota. After a lengthy exchange, he turned back to Samuel. "Girls say you speak truth. Say you save her and baby brother from death. Say you man of honor among her people." The war leader was quiet for several minutes. Finally, he spoke again. "Pawnee and Lakota enemies, yes, but Pawnee not make war on babies, not make war on men who protect children." He gestured northwest. "You go that way to reservation?" "Yes." "Dangerous path. Army patrols, hostile bands, bad men, children not safe." Samuel felt his heart sinking, but the war leader surprised him. "Pawnee warriors escort you to reservation boundary. Make sure you arrive safe. Debt of honor. You protect Lakota children. We protect all of you." "Why would you do this?" Samuel asked, amazed. The war leader smiled, transforming his stern features. "My name's Standing Wolf. 20 winters ago, Lakota war party find my son lost in blizzard. They could kill him, take scalp. Instead, they feed him, warm him, take him back to Pawnee village safe. Sometimes enemies can show honor to each other." As the Pawnee warriors formed a protective escort, Samuel marveled at the unexpected turn. In a land where tribal warfare was constant, ancient codes of honor transcended traditional enmities. "Samuel," Winona said quietly, "grandfather always say great spirit work in mysterious ways. Now I understand." The unlikely procession moved steadily northwest, former enemies united by shared commitment to protecting 2 children. It was exactly the kind of miracle that happened when people chose honor over hatred. The reservation came into view on the 6th day, a sprawling collection of government buildings and temporary shelters stretching across a windswept valley. Even from distance, Samuel could see conditions were harsh, overcrowded with inadequate housing for hundreds of relocated native families. Standing, Wolf called a halt on a ridge overlooking the reservation. "This far as we go. Army not happy to see Pawnee warriors so close. You go alone from here." Samuel dismounted and approached the war leader, extending his hand. "Standing Wolf, I will never forget what you've done for us." Standing Wolf clasped Samuel's hand firmly. "You already repay by protecting children. That is enough." He spoke to Winona in Lakota, his voice gentle despite the barrier of language and old enmities. As the Pawnee warriors rode away, Samuel felt profound awe at having witnessed something remarkable. In a time of increasing conflict, he had seen enemies choose compassion over warfare, honor over hatred. The final approach to the reservation was heartbreaking. Families crowded into inadequate shelters, children playing in dirt between ramshackle buildings, adults standing in lines for insufficient government rations. The reality of Indian policy was worse than Samuel had imagined. But as they entered the reservation proper, something extraordinary happened. Word of their arrival spread quickly through the displaced communities. People began emerging from shelters, gathering along the dusty pathways to see the white trader who had rescued Lakota children. Within an hour, Samuel found himself surrounded by hundreds of native people from various tribes. Lakota, Pawnee scouts who had ridden ahead with news, Cheyenne, Ponca, all drawn by the story of compassion that had crossed tribal boundaries. Then Samuel heard a cry that made his heart leap. "Winona! Chayton!" Through the crowd came Running Bear himself, tears streaming down his weathered face as he reached for his grandchildren. Behind him came Winona's parents, alive and searching desperately for their missing children ever since the forced relocation. The reunion was overwhelming. Winona flew into her father's arms while her mother wept over baby Chayton, marveling at how healthy he looked after weeks of uncertainty about his survival. Running Bear approached Samuel with dignity intact despite his obvious emotion. "Samuel Hartwell," the chief said in English, "my family tell me what you done. You saved my grandchildren when you could have rode past. You risk your life, your business, everything for children not your blood." Chief Running Bear, any man would have... "No," the old chief interrupted firmly. "Not any man. Good man, man of honor. You give back what most precious to old grandfather, hope for future." What happened next astonished Samuel completely. Running Bear raised his voice, speaking in Lakota to the gathered crowd. Immediately, people began disappearing into their shelters, returning with items in their hands. "My people want to honor you," Running Bear explained, "want to show gratitude that words cannot speak." One by one, families approached Samuel with gifts: beautiful beadwork, intricate quill work, carved pipes, painted buffalo hides depicting tribal history, silver ornaments, handmade weapons of exquisite craftsmanship. Each gift was precious, representing hours of skilled labor and cultural significance that went far beyond monetary value. But the gifts weren't just from Lakota families. Pawnee Scouts added their own offerings. Cheyenne families contributed beautifully woven blankets. Even Ponca elders, traditional enemies of the Lakota, presented Samuel with a sacred medicine bundle, an honor rarely accorded to any outsider. "Why?" Samuel asked Running Bear, overwhelmed by the generosity. "I only did what anyone should do." "That is why," Running Bear replied with gentle wisdom, "because you say anyone should do, but you only one who did. You show us that good hearts exist in all peoples. In time, when hope is hard to find, you give great gift. You prove that kindness stronger than hatred, compassion more powerful than fear." Standing Wolf, who had remained to witness the reunion, stepped forward. "Samuel Hartwell, today Pawnee and Lakota stand together to honor white man who show us what it means to be truly human. You build bridge between peoples with simple act of caring for children. This story will be told around our fires for generations, teaching our children that enemies can become friends when they remember what matters most." As the sun set over the reservation, Samuel found himself surrounded by people who hours earlier had been strangers or even enemies, now united in celebration of simple human decency. The gifts piled around him represented not just gratitude, but something more profound, proof that compassion could transcend any boundary humans created. Winona approached him one final time, healthy and radiant in her father's arms. "Samuel," she said, "grandfather say you always welcome in Lakota lodges. You always have family among our people. When worlds seem dark, remember, you show us light still exists." Samuel looked around at the faces surrounding him, Lakota, Pawnee, Cheyenne, Ponca, all united in recognition of a truth that transcended tribal boundaries. Sometimes the greatest courage was simply refusing to let a child go hungry. Sometimes the most powerful act was choosing compassion when hatred would be easier. As he prepared to continue his journey, Samuel realized that while he had come to the reservation to reunite a family, he was leaving with something far more valuable: the knowledge that human goodness could triumph over any division, and that sometimes a single act of kindness could change not just individual lives, but the course of history itself. This incredible story proves that compassion knows no boundaries, and that one person's choice to help can change everything. If this tale of unexpected generosity moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing true stories that restore faith in humanity. Share in the comments about a time when someone's kindness made a difference in your life. Your story might inspire someone else who needs hope today. Remember, you never know when you might be someone's Samuel Hartwell, the person who chooses compassion when the world expects indifference. Thank you for watching, and keep believing in the power of human kindness.